Hey, Dean here at the Secret Underground Lair. I got a piece of cherry log that's about 10 inches in diameter at that far end and about 8 inches in diameter at this near end. I believe it to be cherry. This actually is the log that made me want to create the sawmill. It was far bigger than I could run through on my bandsaw, so I thought I could have some tool for this. So check out the build series on how. I've made a slight change to the brackets down here. So formerly I had just something simple like that, but I wanted to be able to grab a little bit higher up. So that's what this little clamp will do. It's not quite 90-degree angle there at the bottom in here. So that way I can put the little spikes into the log, and by applying pressure here, it drives this down that forward into the log. I also changed the clamping mechanism so I can get this roughly in position, tighten the clamp down, and then when this pressure is applied on this bolt and drives that forward, this won't slide back. So much better clamping mechanism. But I'm going to take the first cut just to basically skim the bark off the top. Maybe get a little bit into the wood, but mostly skim the bark off the top. So I'll set the camera up so you can watch that go through. I sharpened up the blade. We now have our bigger motor, longer rails. This is the first real big job. So here's the first cut. I put that last clip, got on fast motion. I hit the wrong button on the camera when it started. So anyway, at least you got to see the cut go through. So here's the first little slice. I can go down about a ½ inch. Take another little bite off this log. I'm not sure what I'm going to use this for, so I'm just kind of going with caution to kind of learn how the sawmill works and how logging works, and I'll take a ½ inch off that. I'll set you up and I'll try and show that cut in real time. So there's the first real good look at the wood that's in this log. This is looking kind of interesting. Might be some good stuff out of this. So I'll go down an inch, inch and an eighth, and we'll take a bigger slab off this. A lot of squeaks and groans. It looks like this wheel may be getting a little tight. I think perhaps the blade is binding a little much in here. So I'm going to take a look at that and then finish up the cut. A couple interesting spots during this log. It seemed to get a little bogged up in here, and it was slow from there on. And when it got right down to here, it was really bogging down. So I stopped everything and took a look and realized that the board had actually fallen down here and was pinching the blade. So I put this wedge in, raised it up, and that let me get through the rest of the log. The log is a little cold. It was outside. I do live in Canada. So I think what I'm going to do is let the log warm up and continue with this. So I'm probably, I'll give it 12 hours or so. But that is a beautiful piece of wood. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? It also has a very interesting smell as you're cutting it. It is like cherries, so this is a cherry log for sure. So I'm setting up to take another slice off this cherry log. The log is warmed up a little bit overnight. In the last video, you may have noticed the wheel here was not spinning quite right. What was happening is that what I've got on this wheel to hold it tight onto the axle is a screw here that pinches this block onto the axle. That wasn't enough, obviously. So I added this little keyway into the block. So the keyway sits there into the axle and goes through into the block now. So that holds that a lot tighter. And we'll keep it from slipping. So I'll set the camera up. We'll take another slice off this log. Another thing I wanted to point out is that I'm not actually going to flip the log onto its edge. I'm just going to take consecutive slices off this log. I will flip it upside down and come at it from the other side. But I find I don't need to cut it into a square cant. Logs of this size will, once I get a slice off them, I can easily manipulate it through my table saw. So I can cut square edges off on the table saw, and I don't need to flip it quite as much when it's here on the sawmill. So I'll set up for another slice off the top of this log, and away we go. a little bit of blade drift starting. So I'm going to check the guides on the far side. I think what may be happening is that the guide is twisted just a little bit. And as I go through the log, it'll get higher and higher and higher. So I'm going to just do some adjustments on that. So here's what I found on my little blade guide. A lot of wear on one side. In fact, it actually tapers this way. So because it is sitting upside down in the sawmill like so, the blade is actually tilted up this way. So I'm just going to go over the sander and grind that off square, and that'll keep the blade a little more level. All right, I got the guides adjusted. We'll resume cutting the log. Get squared up. You can see me kind of going forward a little bit and coming back a bit and going forward a little bit. Doing that for two reasons. One, just to kind of clear out any dust that may be in the blade. But I think it may be time to sharpen the blade again. So I'm going to pause here and sharpen the blade, and we'll try this again. We'll see what kind of a difference that makes. All right, I got the blade sharpened up. Put this collar back on, which I had missing. So let's continue on with the cut. See what a difference a sharp blade will make. Well, a sharp blade makes a world of difference. So here's the slab that was just cut off. Again, just some beautiful grain. And the smell of this wood is just like perfume. It is just lovely. Makes me hungry. I want to go eat a bowl of cherries. So I've reached the point on this cherry log where lowering this clamp to take the next inch off it is just going to start to get into territory where it's a little bit harder to hold it steady. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the log over, change up the clamps, and then we'll start milling from the other side, taking slabs off that way. Not nearly as automated as some of the fancy log mills, but then how much do they cost? I'm swapping out these high clamps for the low clamps because I'll have a good way to bite into it, the log lower down. So the clamps on this side of the table are stops, really, and what I do on the other side is those will actually bite down and force the log up tight against the stops. Okay, we're good to go. I'm going to take a slice just right where the saw is. It's going to remove quite a hump that we've got here, and probably skim a little bit off the top of this bark here. And then we'll reset and come down and take another slab off there to get to some good clean wood. So probably 2 bits of scrap out of this cut. And hey, I'm just learning as I go. So I'll come down probably an inch on this one, and that'll just get me into the top of the wood here, I believe. So let's give it a shot. Mostly bark on that last half of the log. That's all bark, a little bit of wood there. Decent bit of wood there. I'm gonna come down 3/4 of an inch. Give me a small piece here. I'm going to do a little bit of measuring, might have a better idea. Okay, I'm going to go down a full inch. That'll give me some usable material up to here. This little bit over here will be scrap. And then I'll have enough left over. I should be able to get 3 more 1-inch slabs out of this piece. So not bad for a free log. Let's get started. Might have hit the thermal overload. let that cool off and we'll just continue. I was pushing it a little bit hard there at the end. All right, the motor's cooled down a bit, so we'll just finish up this cut. All right, so I've got 2 more cuts to make on that slab, and we'll have a lot of nice wood to work with. I'll have to let this dry and age a little bit. I'll coat the ends with some paint just to seal it up and prevent some checking from happening. Yeah, so far so good. I'm happy. So I just took the bark off the slab we just milled, and you can see on this end there's really not a lot of usable wood. From about here down though, I've got about 36 inches of usable wood, and at its widest spot here, or narrowest spot here, it's about 3.5 inches. So 3.5 by 1, I could cut a nice strip out of that and have some good cherry wood to work with. Pity though, because on this side it looks really nice. I hate to give away a lot of wood, but you know what? You can only do so much. So I'm going to mill the rest of the log. 2 more cuts. I'll set you up for that. Okay, reposition the log. I also debarked it. Not sure if that will make a big difference, but it occurred to me that I'm basically cutting through 3/4 of an inch of bark, which is all waste. So it was easy to strip off. So I took the bark off, set it up a little differently, lowered the clamps. So I'm going to drop the saw 1 inch and 1/8. If you're counting, that'll be 18 turns. And then we'll cut another slab off. Get a little anxious at the end and I push a little hard, so I have to let the motor reset a little bit. Okay, I just made that last cut. It was about that big. Didn't have the camera on, sorry about that. I'm now ready to take the next inch off here. In fact, I'm gonna get 3 pieces out of this yet. It's still 3 inches thick, so I'll take an inch, a full inch, and then the last piece will be slightly less than a full inch. But that's okay, because that's the pith of the wood, and I wound up cutting that down the middle anyway, most likely, because that's highly likely to be cracking. The problem I have at the moment is that to take another 1 1/8 off here, I don't have quite enough clearance, short sight on the design of these brackets. For the blade guides, maybe it's a design fault of the blade guides. The blade guides won't clear these brackets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the piece up 1/2 inch. I've got some 1/2 inch MDF, so I'm going to slip that underneath this side. Another piece will slip underneath this side, and then we'll take the cut and we'll be okay. So I'll reset that up and get back to you in a minute. So our cherry work piece has been raised up 1/2 inch off the log holding brackets. So we're ready to take another 1 inch slab off there. So I seem to be pushing the motor a little bit hard again. Same problem with the 1.5 horse motor that I had, but I'll yeah, just let it cool down a bit and we'll carry on. Again, working the motor a little hard, so we'll let it rest. I made a little change here. I noticed that the fan that was on the motor was put on in the factory orientation, but in the factory orientation, the motor was spinning clockwise. I've got the motor spinning counterclockwise, which meant that the fan was turning in the wrong direction and it was trying to blow air through the motor. And I've changed the fan around now so that it will be drawing air out of the motor. So we'll get a little better ventilation. We'll see if that makes any difference, but I'll just finish up this cut now. Okay, I'm going to set the log up to do that last cut. The last cut will remove, we'll take a slice out of here. That'll leave a little bit of the pith, which will be, maybe we can salvage a little bit of that wood, but we'll see. The pith of the log would generate a lot of chucking, so see if there's anything there to salvage. So let me get set up for the final cut. All right, I have flipped the board over and switched it end for end. I found with my cutting I was narrower at this end than the other. So I have a few lessons to learn about how to sawmill correctly. I'm going to be pushing the saw slowly through this piece. I think that by pushing it hard and fast, that's what's causing blade drift. So I'm just going to go slow like I did on the end of the last cut. I did notice on the end of the last cut there was a much flatter finish. So I'll just go really slow and easy. And final cut on the cherry log. Okay, there's the final cut. This log isn't perfect, and my sawing skills obviously are not perfect, and I'm learning so much as I go. One of the things that's crystal clear is the importance of a sharp blade. So I took the blade out again and sharpened it. This time I spent a little bit more time being careful with the blade. And bear with me, I'm just going to switch around here so you can see what happened. So this was the initial cut, and you can see there are some burn marks as I was cutting through the log, and it was just going really, really slow, and I thought there's got to be something wrong. So here I stopped, sharpened the blade, and look at the rest of the cut. It's just an incredible difference in terms of any burn or anything like that. So yeah, keep the blade sharp. Lesson number 1. Couple other things that I want to do. One is you may notice that as I move the sled back and forth along the rails, sometimes that guy doesn't move quite as evenly as I would like it to. So I would like to put in a cranking mechanism so I can crank it here. That'll run the cable down the pulley across to the other side, pulley back to there, so that both sides get pulled nice and even all the way down the log. So that'll be helpful. Clearly I need a blade guard. Haven't done that yet, so a blade guard with a chute. That'll feed a dust collection system. Hey, dust collection system on the way. And then, of course, house all the electronics inside a proper shield. So a couple things left to do. And yeah, I need a handle, or perhaps using one of those linear actuators that came out of the treadmill. I might see if I can wire that up to make it automatic. But overall, man, I'm happy with this thing. It works well. It does exactly what I wanted it to do. I have learning, obviously, that needs to be done, but hey, if you want to see me put more logs on here, and as I come across them, I'll certainly be putting them on. Let me know if you'd like to see more of this. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Until the next one. Bye for now.